and welcome to Tiny Changes Big Podcast. I'm your host, B. Charlotte. This podcast is all about bringing you real talk and insights from the music industry, with conversations from those who actively live it. We will cover less discussed topics like finance, identity, public perception, and how attempting to survive this unregulated industry impacts our mental health. Together, we'll explore the rhythms of mental health, the highs, the lows, and the steady heartbeat in between, because your well-being is the foundation of your creativity. So come on in, everyone's welcome.
Before we jump in, a note on our content. This podcast will discuss and explore some difficult subject areas. We want to make sure you're aware of what's coming ahead, so you can decide if you're in a good place to listen and make a healthy decision on how and if you want to consume this podcast content. This episode has themes of mental health throughout, plus some mentions of ableism, racism, and unhelpful stereotypes. It discusses isolation and the effects of not being seen or heard in the industry. It covers loneliness, performance anxiety, and issues of self-worth. We want to encourage you to think about how you look after yourself during and after the episode, and listener discretion is advised. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and the host and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not constitute professional mental health, legal, or financial advice. So now you know what's ahead. We hope you join us and enjoy this episode.
I'm delighted to introduce to you our three amazing guests today who have all built really inspiring careers despite facing significant barriers. We have Maya Kashif, a freelance cellist and classical musician. We have Jocelyn Si, singer and front person of Walt Disco, and Mobo Agoro, music manager, champion equity in Scotland's scene. Hello everybody, welcome. Welcome to Tiny Changes Big Podcast. We're absolutely delighted that you're here. Thank you so much for your time, and absolutely buzzing to have this conversation with you about defying expectations. So let's go for it. Let's do it. It'd be great to start at the beginning. It would be lovely to know, what was it like for you starting out? And if we could start with you, Maya, that would be great.
Yeah, so I suppose my barrier and part of the reason why I'm here is that I live with very unpredictable medical condition. I have type 1 diabetes and I also live with a visual impairment. I'm very fluctuating, almost blind in one eye as well. So those are both conditions that are hidden to outside observers. So starting, in the industry, unless you sort of announce that you might have accessibility needs or that sometimes you things might be different for you in a workplace situation or in our industry, then someone might not necessarily know. So starting out as a young person in the industry, I found that quite difficult. I guess because when you're managing something that's hidden, there's a fine line between managing it privately and just denying that it's even there. So it's a really hard balance to strike when you're dealing with people that might not necessarily understand what you need, might think that it's like bizarre that you're like eating in the middle of a concert or things like that, or that you might need to take a bit more time than other people, because often that can present as you taking advantage or you being unprofessional, but they are very valid needs that somebody such as myself might have. And there are a multitude of other conditions that visible and non-visible that people in our industry are having to deal with on a daily basis. So that was quite hard. It took me a long time to basically ask for what I needed and to not feel ashamed of myself when problems did arise. But I think I'm still getting it wrong and getting it right.
Totally. No, and I think especially in the classical music world, it's not a world I'm aware of, but not fully in myself, more in, I guess, the pop or mainstream music industry. And I guess, do you feel like that created maybe more barriers or made it more difficult when there's such strict rules?
I think it's maybe a bit of a misconception that there are more rules. I think for people see classical music as really formal and that, that must be very strict and like stiff upper lip. But actually, if you just ask for what you need, then more often than not, people are really understanding. So it's as much about overcoming it for yourself as it is about the industry being accommodating to you.
No, that's such a good point. Mobo, could we come to you next to sort of hear a little bit about what it was like for you starting out in the music industry, and was there a specific moment where you thought, right, I want to get into music management in particular?
Yeah, with starting off, I sort of stumbled into music management, not having a clue what it takes or what it is. I started off within music by putting on shows. It was a simple thing that I noticed, which was that at the time I was at the art school, and there just weren't many artists that looked like myself or had similar experiences as me being put on in the art school from Scotland. And yeah, that was like the initial barrier, I guess, or the initial issue or problem that I was trying to overcome. And the way that we went about that is by putting on shows and booking locally, but also booking nationally and booking people from down south to help build that audience. I guess, yeah, like the main barrier really for me was like not seeing myself too much within the Scottish music industry, or seeing people like myself. And I guess where we started off was building community and like just finding like-minded, like-minded people that might not have the same barriers, but that also felt a little bit like, yeah, actually this doesn't speak to me and we need a space. And then over time that led into artist management, from the events, just figuring out, okay, we're playing shows, how do we put out a tune, and slowly from there, just yeah, learning. And it's always and still is a learning process for me as well. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, mate, what am I doing again? But it's it's just, I guess, yeah, part of the process.
Jocelyn, was there anything you would like to share with us about, I guess, the early days or the start of Walt Disco as well?
For a lot of music artists, just like playing as many shows as you can, like support shows in your city, and writing like way more, which I didn't do. Like, I think a lot of artists start out. We kind of started out because we got booked for a gig with some mates from like university and stuff, and we were like, okay, we need to write 8 songs to be able to play a half an hour, like a 30-minute set, and we played those 8 songs for ages afterwards, like, and we were just like kind of didn't have any other ones. So I think like writing way more than you think is necessary, like, is always good, because you sort of you find out what you like about your own taste way quicker. Which I guess I would say I didn't do that. But yeah, 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 that's my advice. Right, let's.
But no, I agree with that. Writing more than you think. A lot of times, I guess it could be you'll write the songs and you think, right, that's enough, that's good enough, or that'll do the job, or whatever it is. And then actually, it's hard, isn't it, to find that next bit where you keep pushing yourself, and not too much because you don't want to, but like pushing yourself enough to go, let's keep going and see what else we can get. And like you say, like learning from mistakes is some of the best advice.
Within that sort of thing of playing lots of gigs and therefore going to lots of gigs and then also writing like loads of songs, is you get way, like as I said earlier, like you get way more familiar with your taste, and an audience and manager and like the industry will be able to like sniff out if you are like being really authentic to like your taste in like the way you perform and the songs that you write and the sounds that you make with your instruments, like, and like that authenticity like in like cells, I guess, like, and you'll also, if you do pick up a manager or a label or something after getting really familiar with your taste and being authentic, then there's a chance that all the stages after will be easier because you're proud of everything that you've done and you like know it was like true to yourself. Which like is something that I like didn't know to do and like haven't done, I guess, like at times where I've kind of just made something like for reasons that I couldn't completely justify now, I guess. But yeah, so that's like kind of the main sort of bit of advice I'd give to like younger people and like and to myself when I was younger.
Yeah, totally. I think thinking about, like, I guess the industry will often put artists and musicians and even industry professionals into boxes a lot of the time, and you feel like whether that's genre specific or you just it's sort of you get made to feel that way. I think, is there any advice from all of you really, but for sort of defying or pushing against stereotypes? I'll come to you first, Maya, but in terms of that could be as a musician or in terms of the sort of invisible disabilities you were talking about as well, is there any advice for pushing past that stereotype?
I think stereotypes are just the worst thing. I think, as Jocelyn was saying, you're going to get found out if you're not being yourself, and if you're not like being honest about who you are and how you perform and what you need. Then that's when you're going to run into troubles where you try and fit into the box that you or you perceive yourself to have a box that you're not. That's not you. I just think there's no shame in just being exactly as who you are, and if you're there for a reason, and it's about just trusting that. I mean, it is an industry that's like, I'm sure everyone has experienced that feeling of like, I'm not good enough, and or you're being told you're not good enough, or that you have to keep up to. Certainly in like classical music, it just feels like the standard is just astronomical, and that you're like quite rightly expected to like perform well, but just because you're not like this person or that person, or you need things done differently for you, in my case, or like sometimes we'll need allowances to be made, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there. So I guess it's just about self-belief in the end.
Exactly. No, totally. And it's made me think about, as well, I was thinking about that, that feeling when right there in the moment somebody is judging you or underestimating you, or you think that yourself, like what you say, it's always we can be our own worst enemy, can't we? And somebody's not thinking that at all, but in that moment, if you felt that specifically based on the way somebody's treated you right there and then in that moment, or like that idea of it's hard to not just focus on, I guess, trying to make other people happy. It's all about, like you say, believing in yourself and your own mindset and knowing what you're capable of, like what you say, and being confident in that. But then there's also, I was thinking about, a bit of a hypocrite, because it's also quite good when you can maybe prove somebody wrong, or you're the underdog in a situation and you can go, no, look, I can do it. I can show you.
The thing is, if someone there has a problem with you because of they think you're being unprofessional, or the way you look, or how you present, then that's their problem. At the end of the day, if you're coming in with the intention of just being a performer or contributing to the industry in a positive way and in your way, and they've got a problem, then that's not a you thing. That's to be adjusted for you. You don't have to do the adjusting.
Exactly. No, big time. Love that. And Mobo, on that sort of topic, I guess thinking of it from the management perspective, how would you, for maybe an artist that you're working with, or an artist that you're starting working with that's maybe brand new to the industry or just starting out, what would your advice be to them, I guess, or what would you think to try and help them staying true to themselves, their identity, but also, I guess, navigating the industry and all the ups and downs of that?
Yeah. I think I would sort of follow up on what Maya was saying, that oftentimes it is someone else's preconceived notion of you, like, and that's a them problem. As much as it still feels very real, and to a degree I still get it, the amount of times that I show up to and the amount of times that I show up to festivals and I'm assumed to be the artist and Richie my manager is ridiculous, you know. But those are just some of those things that you just need to remind yourself that that is them. But I think it is very much like really figuring out like what it is that you are about, and that can be a bit of a process as well, and that process, it's okay for that process to evolve over time as well. But I think yeah, figuring out and understanding like, yeah, what is your message, what do you stand for, who do you want to speak to, who's the community that you might that you're already a part of. And yeah, just it's easier said than done, I guess, like walking within that truth. But like, yeah, build that community around yourself and really lean into them. That would be my advice.
Totally, and it's like, because it can be such a lonely experience, can't it, being working solely in, as a musician or working in the industry as well, or even sometimes when you're working within a band. Or for me, when I was signed to a label and working with a big team, like I felt way more lonely than I ever have in my life, and there was more people working with me than ever before. I think it comes down to, like what you say, it's who those people are, and it's about if they're right for you and you feel like they understand your ethos, I guess. But it's made me think as well, moving on, I guess, thinking of like the pressures encountered as an artist. And Jocelyn, obviously, with Walt Disco, extremely successful, 2 amazing albums. And one of the quotes I saw, which I think is out the bio, but it's Walt Disco are a band who defy all convention to create a world of their own, truly like no other, which I love. And I think along with that statement, I guess, not just sonically developing over the years and the sound, and I know there's a bit of a different sound with the second album, and but also I guess aesthetically as well, isn't it? Like now that's such a, I guess it always has been, but even more so nowadays, it feels like that's one of the biggest elements of being an artist or being a band nowadays is aesthetically, from record to record or that type of stuff as well. But how do you sort of, I guess, deal with that type of, well, there's a couple of questions in there really, but how, firstly, dealing with that pressure of recent successes, or how to know how to get on to keep going to the next stage,
Well,
really.
I think I'll start from the end. To keep going to the next stage, like the music, like I'd say the music always informs everything. Like, and just like writing more and like feeling like you're going somewhere with what you're about to put out as a musician, and that will inform visuals and stuff like that. And although we've put a lot of emphasis on visuals and stuff like that, we always just let the music inform it, and it's decided kind of, I guess, fairly quickly in like meetings and stuff like that we have. So yeah, but I to a certain extent, like that has put us in a box at times. It is being like a visually focused. Like we haven't described ourselves as that, but we've been described as visually focused and stuff like that. And there's a certain music fan, certain part of the industry that will sort of judge that box and stuff. So I would say it's a thing that I'd say to people to avoid doing, because it's like, if you're living the truth, then and being authentic with like the visuals that you're doing, then it's the right thing to do. But I would say at times we were really ambitious with our visuals in like videos and like cover arts and stuff. Like got like stylists and all that to bring in all these lovely clothes, but we weren't there in a touring sense, like in terms of being able to have like a wardrobe or a stylist, because we still play quite small venues, and so we couldn't match our aesthetic that we had in these videos, and it made it seem a bit confused. So I'd say, like, from what I've learned of like being ambitious with visuals, like in a non-touring sense, like let it ramp up, like, you know what I mean? Like Chapel Roan, for example, like is an artist like that, uh, who has amazing outfits and outfit changes and set design, but like
Yeah.
when she wasn't big 3 years ago, like she, if you look at videos of her playing at 400 cap venues, like her outfits were like pretty practical.
Never really thought about that as well, in terms of, I don't want to go off too much on a different tangent, but that in terms of what you're, yeah, if you're doing a photo shoot, video shoot, and aesthetically matching what you go out and tour. I've done that myself as well. You do a fancy photo shoot or something, and then I'm going out to just play in my jumping in jeans. But sometimes I guess the the contrast is good, but it's a really good point. And I think about, yeah, allowing yourself to take that time, and I know Maya as well, being freelance, comes with, I guess, its own challenges as well, but also its own pros, and there's also lots of positives to it as well. Similar to being an independent artist, to being a signed artist, there's, I guess, pros and cons for it all. But I think I read your article that you did, your piece on Musicians Union, which was really brilliant, and I know you're a member of the NU Equalities Committee, and I think yeah, it would be kind of good for our listeners to know, and anybody out there listening that is unsure maybe about the differences of maybe being freelance or working, I guess, with other people. It'd be kind of good to maybe have a little bit of insight into that, if you felt like okay to share that.
I mean, I love the variety. Personally speaking, I know some people that really love just doing the same, like being in the same band, doing the same thing, and that's their security, and there's a routine to that. But I love, like, I've got a show today, I'm doing a gig with a band on Friday, I've got orchestra stuff next week, I'm currently touring a ballet. Like, there's loads of, that just sounds like I'm bragging. I guess the con of that is that you don't know when your work's going to come, and you don't know where it's coming from necessarily. So you can have these long dry patches where you think, oh, am I good enough to be here? I'm not getting offered anything. And then it'll be kind of just the moment where you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. You suddenly get like a load of really nice work. So I think as much, I think you need to maybe identify in yourself, like, what you enjoy about the job you've chosen to do, and that you don't have to do it. You're always, is it worth it? Is what you're doing actually truly like who you are and what you want to do? And I know that when I'm busy, I'm the happiest, and that means I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, I think riding the wave is like a good general mindset for freelancers. Just kind of, if stuff's there, and when stuff's not there, take rest and trust, and also, I mean, I guess it's the constant hustle as well. You constantly have to send people your CV, like ask people, say, I'm here, I'm a cellist, this is what I've done before, maybe we could do something. So yeah, I mean, that's hard, and it can be challenging when you're dealing with other stuff as well. So you know, everyone's got to find their balance, and find their lane that they want to be in.
Exactly, and it's such a good point, isn't it? Because it is so different for every person, and each person's experience is going to be different. And sometimes you need to try something to know whether that's not for you, or sometimes you just know off the bat that is not what I want to do. And it's, yeah, like what you say, it's that moment. I mean, I can't count the number of times when it happens, when you're at that moment where you're like, I think I'm probably done now. I'll give it a rest, and that'll just need to be it. And then, yeah, something, a little something. It could be something super small sometimes. It could be a really lovely message that someone sends, or it could be something really small or personal or something like that. That then, you know what, you get that drive and that fire to keep it going. And I think sometimes, yeah, if you're working solo or working freelance, you need to give yourself that motivation a lot of the time. But like what you say, when you enjoy it and you're being true to yourself, then that makes it all a lot easier.
I also think it's really lovely and a good thing to do to support other freelancers along the way. Like, really, we don't say to each other that we're like, oh, whenever I have a good desk partner, I'm like, I'm gonna tell them, you're really great to sit next to, you're such a good musician, because we don't say it. You might all think it. I think it's really important to, like, help each other through it as well. And as Mobo was saying, that kind of sense of community, like that can really take you through. And I'm struggling at the moment for this. Are you struggling? What kind of works around that kind of thing? I think just communication with your peers.
Yeah, and it can be hard sometimes to, you don't want to maybe admit that it's difficult or you're struggling or things are a bit tricky or it's not working out because it feels, you think people may judge you for that, but I've always, in my experience, it's never the case, is it? It's always so much better to be chatting with people. And someone will go, oh yeah, I feel the exact same, or I've had that situation, or they can say, maybe help and signpost to maybe try this or try that, and can be really good. Mobo, when you're talking about the idea of community and you have to carve out your own space in the industry, I mean, ideally we should be at a point where it's not like that. But so in terms of, I know you're booking for Pitch in Scotland, which is a brilliant new conference. I think that's only in its second or third year, is that right?
I've been there for 3 years, but it's been running for 5.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, okay. And I know as well you curated a lineup for South by Southwest in London. So like what you say in terms of it's not just in Scotland, it's about national, international as well. But it's about creating your own opportunities and, like what you say, finding your own collaborators and people who support your vision. How, if someone right now is listening and they feel totally isolated or they feel so out of the loop, and like, how on earth do I, what is some maybe small or steps that they could take to feel a bit more included?
I think what really helped me at the beginning was, and I can only kind of speak from my perspective really, was to attend things, when I felt really like, oh my God, it's only Hamish within the industry that's actually giving me the time of day. Like, I started attending more things, and I started actually going to the conferences, learning a little bit more, and then realizing over time that like I wasn't alone within this feeling of isolation. And I feel like the more that I sort of spoke to people and sort of shared what might have seemed as like wild plans were, the more like it was normalized in a way. And I think, I guess the advice I would give is that like you really aren't alone in this. There is someone that will feel similar to you, and I think that the way to get to them is really by if you're a fan of someone, like let them know. If you like what someone is doing, like share that with them, and you'd be surprised how little that happens, and how much people will appreciate that because they also feel seen. Like the industry can be very lonely. Like we all come together at shows or like at conferences, and then we're way behind the laptop or we're writing a tune, like like all the day-to-day stuff. And I think that like I think that the advice I would give is like, go out and meet people, or try and meet people as much as you can and ask people like, how did they do that? That is usually my question. Like, how do people do what they do? Be curious. And I think like that curiosity will also help find other people that are also curious as well.
No, totally. And that, it makes so much sense. And like what you say, it's about having the confidence to ask those questions, or like you say, go to events and put yourself out. That's the hardest bit, isn't it? Sometimes there'll be so many things that I don't know, like what Jocelyn was saying about mistakes or stuff like that throughout. When I think about over the years, there's certainly some mistakes, but also my regrets are only things that I probably didn't do because I was too nervous or too in my own head or too felt like I didn't fit into that environment. And like what you say about putting yourself, as hard as it can be, to putting yourself in the room or to pushing yourself to go. And what you're just touching on there as well, the idea of like when we're all together at shows or at events and you feel that it feels great, doesn't it? When you have the community or you have people around you, and it can feel really great. But then, when you go back to, you're either by yourself or you're back to that headspace, it can be really hard to manage. And I guess Jocelyn as well, similarly with, I don't know if you felt it yourself, but obviously the roller coaster of performance when you've got the high of on stage, and then for me sometimes I would immediately have I could still be on stage and I'm like, ooh, powering down. It's like the what is the word? Adrenaline, I guess, that kicks in. But in terms of that navigating the roller coaster of I don't know, performance nerves or putting yourself out there, that type of thing.
I quite like the sort of I don't know, the mantra of like amusing yourself, but also like kind of like freaking like yourself out in the same way, and then therefore freaking the audience out, and just like doing the thing that you think would kind of like seem like the wrong thing to do. Like the guy from the way the guy like from Future Islands like pretends to like eat the stage and stuff like that. Like I think it's just great, and you'll instantly like loosen yourself up when you start doing stuff like that. I don't know, growling at someone in the front row or something like that. Because I can get so cripplingly nervous, but also at the same time feel like I'm not even playing a gig on stage. Like your brain does kind of weird and annoying things to make you feel like that you definitely shouldn't be on stage. So it's learning different tricks to get you back in that headspace, whether it's to calm yourself down or to become less calm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I guess that it would be different for different people. Some people would want to perform in like my style, or some people might have like an instrument in front of them for most of the set. So, but just figuring out a way to like be present in a kind of like sustainable way, like on stage, is good. And my way is maybe trying to amuse myself, freak myself out, or whatever, something like that. But someone else might be someone else. Someone else might be a deep breath, or um, explaining to the audience what the song is about, or just when you're singing the song, if you feel like you're giving it no emotion, think about what you wrote the song about. You wrote that song from a place probably quite deep within yourself, like, and sometimes you just need to convey the emotion of the song you're singing, and remember that's what you're doing, and that's what hopefully the audience can take away.
Totally. No, I love that. And I love the idea of like what you say, amusing yourself, or like try to freak yourself out enough to go, what can I do here? I really like that. It's making me think about that idea of like whether you could be on stage performing, or like Mobo if you're talking at an event or on a panel event or presenting, or any of those things when you're, or like this, when you're in an environment, when you're talking to other people, or you feel like you're, you know what I mean, being watched or presented. For myself, I don't know if similar for you, you could be like what you say, Jocelyn, inside you're like, I shouldn't be doing this, I can't do this, blah, 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 all of the things. And then people think, oh my God, you're so confident, you're so, how can, you know what I mean? That's amazing. How can you think, I must be good at acting then, because but I don't know like how, if you've got, I guess similar to what I asked Jocelyn there, Mobile, but like the idea of if you are in that environment and you think, I physically cannot do this, or mentally cannot do this, like what, if an artist, say you're working with, maybe is like in that position, and how would you, I guess, help navigate those feelings to help them do what they want? Because ultimately you want to do it, ultimately you want to perform, or ultimately you want to show your music with the world, but sometimes there's all those sort of hurdles.
That's actually a really interesting question. And one of the acts that I'm working with just now, there's been a thing around like the person and then the artist, the act on stage. And one of the exercises that we done workshops was to really figure out like who they want to turn into when they are on stage, like who is that character. And essentially sort of boiled down to that, like they are the hero for that inner child of theirs, and that just reminding them of that just helps. That's like, okay, I right now might not feel um up for it or within that space. However, there is something within me that kid that didn't think that I could do this, or that young person that didn't think that I could do this, and compared to now, and that helps. There's a number of rituals as well before the show and even whilst on stage. Whether that's I think it's called like a sound bowl that's now being involved as part of the set as well, and just doing these small things that to the audience it might just be like, what's going on, or like, oh, this is part of the set, but it just takes them back to that space of calm, and that's sort of been what that's sort of been what we've done. I think also voicing it is like the key part, and not carrying it within you, but sort of finding those cruxes, like as Jocelyn was saying, like whether it's the growling or like the the sound bowl, or a mantra, to just to get you into that space, because it is scary. I oftentimes also get that I am super confident, but as calm as I'm sitting right now, internally I'm bouncing about, so it's
Exactly, yes. 100%. I mean, that's such a good point as well. I really like that about because you feel it so many times. I guess in any profession, in any capacity, you've got your work persona and your at-home persona, don't you? But it's sometimes harder when that work persona is one that needs to be presented to the world, so to speak, and whether that's on a stage or online, it can be really hard to find that balance. But that's really, really great advice and such good insight as well. So we'll move on to our last sort of couple bits. Obviously, this podcast is for young people in the industry, and sharing our stories and giving us advice as much as we can, so that we can help them to have the best experiences as possible, or best opportunities. So, given all of that, if there's one thing you could tell your younger self, what would that be in terms of relating to being in music, or just in general? If there's one thing you wish you could sort of say. Mobo, I'll go to you first.
I'm thinking of a quote by Kerry Mae Weems, who's a writer, activist, poet, and that quote has actually been in my mind like the last few months. And essentially, and I hope I don't misquote, it is there's a whole lot of room for seriousness and play, but there's like next to no room or little room for play within seriousness. And essentially what that is saying is that like you can be playful and you don't need to get it right, and it will get serious when it gets serious. But it's about like the industry will come. I think it's really important to just find yourself and the way that you want to do things, and also do it in a playful way, because the seriousness bit, you might be you might find yourself pretending or like trying to work towards an ideal, but don't lose that playfulness. That's one thing that I wish I told myself early on.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Jocelyn, any one piece of advice for your younger self is hard?
I guess like in a way I can kind of like offer my own insight into that sort of mantra of like, I think it's sometimes easy to convince yourself when you're doing something like the arts that like what you're doing is like silly, but like you are rewarded so much for like doing that extra thing that's like seems like you're a little business person, or doing that thing that is like really putting yourself out there in a creative sense, that you're like, oh, I haven't seen someone else doing that, so maybe I shouldn't do that. But you could like you don't have enough money to, I don't know, go on tour, like make some merch, put it online, go to the post office every day. If someone finds buys a piece of merch, like you're always, I find that you're always rewarded for those like extra pieces of hard work, like completely, and it's not embarrassing at all, especially when you kind of get somewhere in the industry. Like everyone will just go, "You, what's happened to you is so amazing. Like you must be having the best time," and they definitely don't think about, you kind of like hustling almost at different little bits like that. So yeah.
So Maya, um, given all we've chatted about, you've kind of already touched on it as well. But if you could give your younger self maybe one piece of advice, or to maybe young people facing similar barriers to what you've mentioned yourself, what would that be?
If you need something, ask, because otherwise you're creating more of a barrier for yourself by not. Again, truth. Just be honest and true about who you are and what you need.
So our last sort of bit that we do, in the spirit of tiny changes and the podcast, is asking our guests if you could recommend one tiny change following on from this discussion. If it's something, could be something for you, I guess we've touched on that, or something maybe for the industry really. And I can kick things off. I feel like with mine would be something that I've realised, noticed quite quickly when I started venturing out of Scotland, going down to London or going down to the music industry in that sense, is to see diversity, representation and equality, not just on the stage but off it as well. And I guess in terms of an A&R and management, production as well in particular, and those executive roles, like that's where we need people in positions of those power that can do for good, and do for the good things really. So I know that's again similar to Maya, it's a big change, but I think slowly but surely it feels like that tide, we're getting there slowly but surely. But yeah, for me definitely more, just more good people in in positions of power ultimately. Jocelyn, what about one tiny change?
I mean, sticking on the fact that this is a Scottish podcast and what you just said, like those sorts of people and that sort of industry and that sort of those companies being based here and in like in the north of England and Scotland specifically, like will just like benefit us all. And like I don't know, we're close to London, but we're also quite far away, and like it would be nice for people to sort of get to the next step of their career without having to rely on London so much.
Yep.
So if I don't know, if you're a music manager thinking of moving to London, don't.
Exactly. And do you know what? It makes you think as well, like with Scotland, it feels like, in terms of like, you think of like independent shops versus big chains or chain restaurant independent, it's similar in the music industry, isn't it? We've got lots of independent or community things rather than obviously the bigger stuffs. But sorry, Mobo, what's your one tiny change?
I wish, or my tiny change would be for more independent organizations to come together to create like these in-between spaces for aspiring managers, A&Rs, producers, or industry personnel, I guess, to be able to just have experiences within music. Because I think across all the organizations, like we all are constantly working within music, and I just wish that there was more coming together and thinking about like joint projects or joint things that we could do to help more people find sustainable and sometimes informal pathways into the industry, because I think that would help also keep more people here.
Yeah, I would love the industry to, it sounds quite general, but come from a place of non-assumption. So like someone's turning up, don't assume that they are going to be a certain way. Don't assume Mobo's the artist and not the manager. Don't assume that somebody isn't going to need a ramp to get to the stage. Don't assume, just non-assumption, so that people don't have to constantly be singled out, or be the odd one out, or be the different person. Like, you're already creating an environment where it's accessible for everyone, and that there's no assumption or judgment there.
Well, that's us. Thank you all so much for all of the amazing insights, and like it was just so great for me to hear, and it's going to be so great for our listeners and viewers to hear it as well. It was just really brilliant, and we just really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared with us today. So thank you all very much. Thank you so much to all our listeners and viewers. I really hope that this episode can serve as a reminder to keep pushing past the doubts, breaking those barriers, and trusting that your voice matters now and it always will. We know that the road to success in music isn't a straight line. It's filled with twists and turns and detours, but every step and every challenge is part of a story that nobody else can tell but you. The world needs your voice, never forget that. So here's to embracing our differences, celebrating uniqueness, and being there to support each other every step of the way. We would love to hear your thoughts on defying expectations in the music industry, so please feel free to join the conversation on our socials. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep making tiny changes that lead to something big.
If you've been affected by anything that came up in today's episode, you can find a list of resources for reaching out for help in the episode show notes, or you can check out Tiny Changes support page at tinychanges.com/support. Thank you to our great host, B. Charlotte. Music produced by the brilliant Barry Jackson. Podcast artwork by the amazing Berwin Muir. Technical production by the very talented Ross Sloan. This podcast was created and produced by Kayla Megan Burns and Nina Abisoria for a Tiny Changes pilot production.